Have you ever noticed the same kind of situation showing up again in your life? Maybe not exactly the same, but somehow familiar. A similar feeling, a similar dynamic, a similar ending. And it leaves you wondering quietly, why does this keep happening? Some people notice this in relationships. Others feel it in the way they respond to certain moments. It can feel like walking into a story you've somehow lived before. Not identical, but close enough to feel recognizable. And this is something many people don't notice. Because on the surface, everything can look different. Different faces, different places, different timing. But underneath, there's a certain emotional familiarity. A feeling that feels known, even if it isn't easy. Some people describe this as being drawn toward what feels familiar. Even when that familiarity carries a certain weight. Even when it doesn't feel entirely good. And this is where it becomes subtle. Because it's not always a conscious choice. It doesn't feel like deciding, I want this again. It feels more like ending up there. Like something quietly pulls you in that direction. And it can feel confusing. Because part of you might want something different. Something lighter, something calmer, something new. But another part seems to recognize what it already knows. Even if that knowing comes with discomfort. But there's something deeper here. Familiarity can feel strangely safe. Not because it's easy, but because it's known. The emotions, the reactions, even the tension. They don't surprise you. And sometimes, the unknown can feel more unsettling than the familiar. Even when the familiar is difficult. So people often find themselves returning to patterns that feel recognizable. Not out of intention, but out of a quiet sense of knowing. This can show up in small ways. The kinds of conversations you fall into. The way you respond when something feels off. The roles you take without thinking. And over time, it can start to feel like a loop. Not an obvious one, but a gentle repetition. And this is something many people don't notice. Because it doesn't always feel like repetition. It feels like life just unfolding. But every now and then, there's a moment of pause. A quiet realization. This feels familiar. And that moment can be important. Not as judgment, not as blame. But simply as awareness. Because awareness doesn't force change. It just creates a little space. A small pause between what feels automatic. And what might be possible. And this is where it becomes subtle. Because the pattern itself isn't something to fight. It's something to notice gently. To sit with without rushing to fix it. Sometimes these familiar patterns carry old emotional echoes. Feelings that were once learned or repeated or simply lived through. And those echoes don't disappear overnight. They stay quiet but present. Waiting to be recognized more than anything else. Not pushed away, not judged, just seen. But there's something deeper here. What feels like repetition might also be an attempt to understand something unfinished. A quiet reaching toward resolution. Even if it doesn't feel that way at first. And this doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're stuck. It simply means you're human. Moving through patterns that once made sense in some way. And slowly becoming aware of them. Because awareness has its own kind of gentleness. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force. It simply notices and softens the edges of what once felt automatic. And sometimes that's where change begins. Not in dramatic shifts, but in small, quiet moments of seeing. Where you pause just for a second and recognize the pattern as it's happening. And in that pause, something new has the chance to enter. Not all at once. Not perfectly. Just slightly differently. And that difference can be enough. Enough to gently shift the direction over time. Enough to create space where there wasn't space before. So if you ever notice something repeating, you don't have to push it away. You don't have to solve it immediately. You can simply sit with it softly. Curious, not critical. Present, not pressured. Because sometimes, what feels like repetition is simply something asking to be understood.